This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, it's now 6:30 and I'll call this town council meeting to order. The first thing we'll have is the invocation, and this is by Kurt Lawton from the Ocean Lakes Campground. Good evening, sir.
Would you join me as we all pray together, please? Oh God, during these days of the changing seasons, we would echo the words of a hymn which say, for the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our prayer of grateful praise. Father, you've taught us to love truth and goodness and beauty. May your truth make us free. May goodness be more than just something we desire. And may it be found in our lives individually. We also pray, O God, that the beauty of the Lord may be seen in each of us. Teach us to pray, to know how to offer ourselves to each other without anger. We pray that you'll help us to respect the feelings of other people more than our own rights, and the rights of others more than our own personal feelings. Lord, we do invoke your blessings on this meeting tonight, asking that those who gather here may have divine wisdom to make decisions which will be not only best for our town, but also those decisions that will be in keeping with your perfect will for us. And so, oh God, may we have done with lesser things and give heart and soul and mind and strength to serve the King of Kings. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll now entertain any motions relating to the agenda. And if there are no motions
You want
relating.
me to do it?
Oh, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to remove communication item A, Little Miss South Carolina overall queen Isabel Lewis, since she was unavailable to attend this evening.
Second.
Okay, does anybody have any discussion on it? Sherry?
Mr. Drake,
No. I mean, yes.
Mr. Holder?
Any questions?
Yes.
Mrs. Keating,
Yes,
Mr. Kinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Kreckl,
Yes.
Mr. Stamey.
Yes.
Mayor Hellier.
Yes. Okay, moving right along, the next thing is the minutes approval, and these are the minutes from September 12th, 2023, regular meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the September 12th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? Sherry?
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Holder,
Yes.
Mrs. Keating,
yes,
Mr. Kinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Kreckl,
Yes.
Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Mayor Hellier.
Yes. The next thing is public comments, and these are public comments relating to agenda items only. Each person has 5 minutes. So,
I just got one comment. It only take 2 minutes or less. Under item 23-164, resolution to adopt social media policy for the town of Surfside Beach. I think there should be 2 readings, not just one. Because I just kind of was reading it today and then I don't know why there's only 1 reading. Why isn't there 2? Okay? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robert Kraus, 4th Avenue North, and I'm also going to speak about the social media policy. I have serious concerns and I want to speak out against it. I believe it's well-intentioned and in trying to improve civil discourse, but that's not enough. I believe this is an unconstitutional infringement on citizens' free speech. The Municipal Association of South Carolina paper that was included in the agenda is a cautionary document. I trust this council will not ignore these cautions. Some may say other municipalities have done this and it's been upheld. There are courts that believe the Constitution evolves with changes in social norms. I don't agree. Why would the town even take a chance with this? But if the town does forge ahead, who's the arbiter of the policy? We recently saw numerous negative comments related to the pier dedication ceremony deleted from the town Facebook page and website, both, I believe. And they were negative, but does that disqualify them? That's the kind of speech that has to be protected. Nobody needs to protect everybody agreeing. It gets a little bit heavy-handed and it can't be tolerated. And even if somehow we do come up with an interpretation of the policy for now, what about 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? Who's going to be in charge of it then? So if the town still thinks it can thread the needle, then I say Surfside Beach should not be a party to any idea that even appears to limit free speech. There's far too many other places that are happy to do that. And like it or not, we must allow free speech. I, for one, want nothing to do with this.
Good evening, Council. Dusty McCracken, 114 South Oak Drive. I come before you tonight to provide some feedback from my perspective of the proposed adoption of a social media policy, agenda item number 7, business letter C. I understand it's common practice for larger towns and cities to adopt such policy and that government agencies push local government leaders to create such policies. I would assume our town attorney shares the same mindset. Luckily, our town is small, consisting of only 4,100 residents who live in a small 2 square mile town, and we are represented as the family beach. That practically makes us all neighbors and just one big old family. If we need tools to censor residents in such a small population, I think other things may need to be looked at as a resident that share their frustrations. Because when things are wrong and, okay, let's start. So looked at as residents share their frustrations. When things are wrong and appreciation when things are right. We may need to look at who's creating these rules and regulations or enforcing them, as in most cases, they are not followed through 100%. We may need to look at how we communicate with the town residents, as most things are done in executive session or in a way to reduce skepticism from residents. I find this route to not be beneficial to the town. As we stayed ahead, if we have stayed ahead of our problems and communicated clearly, residents would not seek out other means of clarity. The proposed social media policy struck me wrong, as I felt there should be a policy, guidelines, and management process for all town communications before limiting residents from exercising their First Amendment rights. The town's Facebook page was created 14 years ago as a mechanism to better communicate with residents. The digital world has definitely changed over the last 14 years, and more people than ever are using social media as a means to communicate with their local government, sometimes looking at it more than the town website. Hence why we have a communication officer now. And in its current state, there have been several complaints of censorship as it sits now. I know in most recent posts it shows comments, but of course I'm not able to see them. Others are not able to see them, but the town can see them. You will push back and say it's a privacy setting or something dealing with other profiles, but I disagree. I do not see it on other Facebook pages or profiles. One reason why there are a zillion Facebook groups around town is the lack of communication. I understand everything that the town does will not always satisfy everyone, but if there's anything I believe in, it's the right to freedom of speech. If you do move forward with this policy, I ask that all comments, deletions, and any modifications be recorded to be accessible to the public at any given time, as they have a right to see what their neighbors are concerned with. But ultimately, I ask you to recognize us as the family beach and disregard the adoption of this policy. Each of you were elected to represent us and keep our best interest. You volunteered for the spotlight and criticism as well as town employees. We should use the positive and negative to guide us to a better Surfside. So I'll leave you with this. How would you feel as leaders and residents if you were censored today? Thank you.
Sean Ballin, 411 Cedar Drive North. When I look at this, it's just unbelievable. Why don't you, instead of trying to restrict what's on Facebook. Why don't you, when there's a negative comment, educate the people? Maybe they don't understand it. But if you can't take a little criticism, shame on you. You are in a spotlight, you should be able to handle it. But I believe that we need to educate the people. Everybody's talking about the pier and the dedication. There was a lot of people that didn't understand it. You know, why you had it at that time. You can't even walk on the pier, but you had a dedication. And I think that's where the grumbling came from. So you want to take away those comments, because they were negative comments. They were freedom of speech comments. How can you take away our freedom of speech? You can't. And I read lawsuits all over this. I mean, class action lawsuits. So instead of censoring the information, why don't you come back and educate? And that's the biggest problem here. The people, residents of Surfside are not understanding what's going on because the information is not out there. I'm pretty good with a computer, but let me tell you, it takes me a couple searches when I'm looking for stuff on the Facebook or the website for Surfside. It's not easy. So I talk about education, educate the residents. We still may not like the answer, but it'd be better than taking our freedom away from us. Thank you.
David Pellegrino, 2nd Avenue North. Again, just commenting, I don't agree with any type of censorship. Some things I've been on this side of the table and the other side of the table. So make sure you keep the post, even the negative ones. It's good to have negative posts because it makes us think, but respectful. And also from the people who are sending a post, I personally don't like social media. It's something we have to live with though. But if you have questions, all the phone numbers of these gentlemen up here are public. So call them, and it's much easier to have a dynamic conversation and get answers and give information and complaints and concerns and get information back and forth than it is to go through social media, because it sits there for hours, days before someone sees it, and then they go back and say something and it's 10 comments down from the original comment, and it's just, it gets very convoluted. So I would just, that's another option, just to call them and get the answer right there, mouth to mouth. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Okay, moving right along, we will have a peer update by Zane Peterson, Collins Engineering.
How are y'all doing today? Good. All right, so for the most part, I told Jerry I was gonna come up here, after the meeting Tuesday. He informed me of the FOIA requests that have been put in as far as the report. Obviously, since then, I've kind of seen some of the comments and concerns, so I'm sure there's a lot of questions. Figured right now would be the best time, and we're all talking right now about communication between the public and council and, you know, that project. So what are, I guess, following, I know that everyone's seen the report. I'm sure there's some hot topic issues right now. What are some things that we have questions about? Right now in my hand, I have the response that was provided to me from Matt yesterday after we had requested a bit more description than what was provided previously. So if there's anything that pertains to that, I have an update as of, 12 hours ago that fits for most of these issues. So is there any questions specifically from anyone individually about it?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, I think the letter you wrote is an exaggeration, and it could include some very erroneous and inflammatory statements that I don't feel were warranted based on the relationship that you've been building over the last several years with this project. It's been fraught with challenges left, right, and center. There's more than enough blame to go around. Collins is at fault, LS3 is at fault, Consensus is at fault, the town's at fault. So there's no reason for a letter like this to go out without sitting down with the team and going through each item. I mean, I summarized what you sent out, and there are about 3 categories that are either punch list items, as design specifications, additional items that were never part of the design specifications, items that don't even apply to the peer project, and many of them are redundant comments. So to go out to the media and say there's 42 pages of code violations is ridiculous and nowhere remotely close to true. I mean, there are 22 items that I would categorize as a punch list item. All but 2 of those have been completed. The remaining 2 are open work items that everybody admits is ongoing. And that is handling the handrails, because we've got manufacturing flaws, we've got manufacturing delays, we've got things that had to be modified on site, and we have to have a finisher come out and refinish some of the railings that had to be repaired. We all know that's ongoing. We've got the under podium insulation. That's been going on for close to 3 years. We've just recently determined what color gray we want the final coating to be. So that's in works. It's not completed yet, but that's in works. There are about 3, 4 items. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 items alone talking about the monumental stairs and the stairwell handrails. They're all saying the same thing. It could be sitting down with the design team, sitting down with the construction team. You could have gone through it and brought up a document just like this and said, this is one item, what are we doing about it? So we have 22 punch list items, all of which have been corrected since this letter went out, except the 2 that I mentioned. We have 14 items that are questionable as far as they were built to as design specifications. So what does Collins want to do about that? I mean, the biggest hot issue right now is the OCRM stairway over the dunes. That's clearly a code violation, but they were built to the design that Collins provided. So what are you going to do about that? You know, that's one of the items here in the as-built design category, because what Consensus was given to build, they built. Now we come back after it's over and the building inspector says, wait, this doesn't meet code. Well, whose job was it to meet code? The designer. You're the engineer of record. Well, if you design something and it didn't meet code, how is that the contractor's fault for building it? The other items, the ADA ramp has surface cracks. Well, I don't think there's a person in this room that probably doesn't understand that concrete cracks. It always does. You yourself had acknowledged the surface cracks on the ADA ramp were no structural problem. They were okay. There are 2 different RFIs that have been put in talking about expansion joints or control joints in both the raised podium and the ADA ramp. RFI 122, dated March 22nd, 2022, asked for confirmation that the ADA ramp did not need expansion joints or control joints to avoid cracking. And the response from Collins and LS3P was, no, they are not required. So that was built to your specifications. It shouldn't be on this list. If anybody came up with that idea, you should have been able to talk to them and said, no, back in March of 22, we agreed that wasn't required. Now, maybe you were wrong at that time, but that's not the contractor's fault. We have as-built designs on the pier railings and the pickets. It was an ongoing discussion at the time, and there's a couple RFIs out to modify how the railings were attached to the upright columns to add structural integrity, so the whole railing is not based on one nail going through the pickets into the concrete. It is now structurally sound and an improvement to the design that we were given. And that was a design that was approved. But now we've got 5 different people walking through independently. Nobody's talking to the contractor. Nobody's inspecting anything back to what the design documents say. And they're just dreaming up new wish lists. We've got added features. We've got 9 items in your 42 pages that constitute additional design features. Added work. Well, I'm pretty sure there's probably nobody up here that wants to approve additional work. I mean, we have a locking mechanism on the end of the pier structure, but now we've got another item that they want a secondary locking system. Well, I don't know if that's even been proposed to anybody, if you're even evaluating that or not. The other items include things like we now want illuminated exit markers on the outside of the pier construction, the building walls, on the outside of the walls, pointing people to internal stairwells. But we don't have exit signs that say just go down the big steps or go down the ADA ramp. We don't have signs that say that. But again, it's not on the design drawings. We don't have power to illuminate extra signs. I just don't see why we put such a document together and never sat down with our partners in this project and went through item by item and talked it through. Because like I said, there are 22 punch list items, all but I think 2 or 3 have been addressed. One is we're waiting for a replacement part. One of the windows has a manufacturing defect in it, and it's been ordered. So that hasn't been completed because it's on order. We have 13 comments that have absolutely nothing to do with the scope of the pier project. We've got comments relating to open items that are being addressed by the upfit of the ice cream shop. That's not part of this contract. We've got a couple items talking about the parking lot. That's not part of this contract. You should have thrown those out right from the beginning. So I'm highly disappointed that, I took probably 3 hours this afternoon and I prepared this document, and I'm more than happy to give it to you because you couldn't do it yourself. But I took this document, I took what I had as records and reports of RFIs, and I went through your 42 pages. And I went through the 32 pictures that were offered by LS3P. Oh yes, this is a bad one. There was dust on the exit sign. Yeah, that should hold up the project. Where is the common sense and the rationale to really produce a punch list that actually says, we are getting close to closing this project. We want it to open. We want it to be done. We don't want to go back out to the media and say, oh yeah, sorry, psych, we have to change the date again because we have dust on an exit sign? Really? I mean, it's ridiculous. We have a highly paid engineering company that's made damn near $2 million on us. We've got a highly paid construction company that has been jumping through hoops against every design deficiency and snafu you could possibly imagine. We had a design drawing for an ADA ramp that had no structural members, no vertical members, nothing holding it up. It took 6 months to get a design for an ADA ramp. It took 9 months to get the stairwells to actually have stairs in them. because all we had were pretty pictures of boxes, concrete boxes saying, this is a stairwell. It had no stairs in it. So we have been jumping through every hoop we possibly can against every problem we possibly can. And then to have this letter go out as inflammatory and, attempting to defame our partners in this project is absolutely unacceptable. I would hope that a meeting is scheduled face-to-face that can go through each one of these items, compare your 42 pages to the 5 or 6 pages that Consensus sent in, and really come down to say, what are the open items? The open items are addressing the handrails and the manufacturing defects that we've been experiencing, because we had to go to secondary and tertiary suppliers because we couldn't get material, because we took too long to define what handrail should we use, what color of white should it be covered, what kind of powder coating should we use. That we were talking about that for about 2.5 years. Well, guess what? COVID hit. This entire project has been under construction during the COVID pandemic. That means materials aren't available. The siding on the entire pier is no longer manufactured by Hardy Gypsum. That's why we had to change siding, because in COVID, they closed that plant. But no, we get down to the final wire and you send this piece of crap. I am highly disappointed in where this project has gone and the fact that no one, including this town, is standing up for this project. All we do is we hear about the nonsense on Facebook and, oh, here we go again. Oh, nobody knows what they're doing. Oh, it's all council's fault. Yet we have highly paid engineers and consultants. We've got an architect. We've got a consultant that was supposed to do everything with our interface with FEMA. Yet for some reason, our original contract said we could do a concrete steel design. No, we couldn't. Who dropped that ball right at the very beginning? That's a $1.5 million hit this project took. And that was 3 years ago. So we are at the point we want to close this project, not open issues and create wounds with the team members. This is ridiculous. I would hope that you will spend some time in town and go over to to either LS3P's office or Consensus's office and have a meeting with the people involved face to face and talk about exactly what needs to be done. Because there are serious issues here on these other items that are not the fault of the contractor. They're the fault of the engineer. And those need to be resolved. And I will wager that the town's not going to be willing to put up too much more money for it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Zane, I've got a few questions that pertains to what Ms. Keating has said. I know that y'all have a meeting every week online between each other. Is all these items not been brought up on that conversation and
Multiple
discussed
occasions,
multiple times every week that
multiple
y'all not-
meetings, multiple emails, multiple letter of
do y'all
notices.
not never discuss these problems? Is all of a sudden you just went down there and found 42 pages, or you and whoever else was down there and found 42 pages of wrong stuff that should have been known all along? If y'all not been discussing it all along?
Yes.
The monumental stairs that's been talked about, was that not taken off and not re-added at Value Engineering that y'all done with no pay for y'all's part of it? It was supposed to have been done by other parties that did not do it.
Yes.
It just said, you know what, we think you do it or they won't be done. Was that not happening? With all that, with this being said, Zane, I know you sent out a list of things that's been taken care of and where the punch list is or the items are at this time. Would you like to go over some of this stuff and explain y'all's participation in it and where we're at right now and give us I know that there were supposed to be a date of finishing this pier. I'd like to know, and I think most people would like to know, when that date was and and what are we doing about the overtime that this date is passed and gone, because I know the date and it's way past time. I'd like to know where y'all are at on that and where the town is and what, how much longer is these things going to take? And I'd like for you to explain to people what has happened to the rails that's went on there, why some of this stuff is being brought up. I'm sure there's some things here that was small things that is on the punch list that needed to be fixed, and we expected that. We all expected that. But when you come up with 42 pages of stuff, explain to the people, everybody, let them know, just put it out there the way it is. I think everybody would appreciate that.
Okay, so what I have in my hand here, is the second response from consensus. The first one we've got, I believe Tuesday, and this one, I had reached out to Matt last night at about 7 o'clock and asked him to be a bit more descriptive as far as the status of certain issues. And I can hand these out to each of you. I have one for each of you. And that simply put was so that if I came up here and gave some of the other answers, such as this item is being addressed, it was a bit more descriptive than this item is being addressed. The report was not intended, I'll say for everyone. That was really sent between Collins and LS3P to consensus is, hey, here's the items that we need fixed before we'll come out and complete a substantial completion. Collins would argue that it's not, there's no opinion to it. It's not full of feelings. It's not full of emotion. There's reasons we attach codes where they applied to certain things, where specifications were attached to certain things. It's an objective report. We try to ensure that everything that we send is objective, meaning just factual. There's no emotion. There's no tone of voice. There's nothing. It's just, here's what it is. Here's why it is this way. If you have specific items you want to visit, Ms. Keating, I would like to get that from you if I could. Maybe I could sift through it and, and then if the town would like those responses to those items published, we're fine to do that. That's part of the Freedom of Information Act. Is there anything specifically, I know Ms. Keating put out a good many of them. Is there anything that's kind of, I guess y'all want more addressed specifically than other items?
Mr. Mayor, I just would, I guess I'd like to know about the monumental stairs.
Okay, all right. So monumental stair, there's
what's wrong and what's being done?
Yeah, so there's a code in IBC that states that in a rise of stairs, one riser is not allowed to be higher or lower than the next highest riser, meaning between the highest and lowest riser, there can't be a variance between 3/8 of an inch. So that was one issue that was found. Right now, between LS3P, Collins, and consensus, we've discussed that it's probably not the actual concrete itself. It is the top coat that was put over top of it, the sealant. The issue with the sealant right now is that we never really received a product submittal for it, so we can't really tell them yes or no, you can grind it down or not. We've got to get that submittal first, which we talked to them this morning about. Once we get that, we can verify the submittal for the sealant is good. Then we can talk about, hey, we need to either grind these steps down in these areas and make it hit that mark. So long as the cover of the reinforcement isn't compromised, we're good to go. That issue's fixed. That can be fixed for the monumental stair and the interior stair towers. The railings. I'm sure as everyone knows, there's a construction process that is followed for when something is designed and then the contractor bids on it. Then when you get to that phase in the project, a contractor will send a shop drawing, which is to mimic that set of drawings that they have got. The point of the shop drawing process is to ensure that the contractor and fabricator fully understand of the engineer's intent, design, that sort of thing, to make sure that what's put up there matches what is on a piece of paper. So typically through the project of this size, there typically are multiple phases within shop drawing review. That's just the reality of it. There's too many things going on at one time for the engineer to catch everything, the contractor to catch everything. It's just, that's part of the process. So with that, we had got through about 3 or 4 different sets of shop drawings with the railings. We had knocked all the issues out. There's certain things that pertain to structural, there's certain things that pertain to architectural. What was installed as a structural engineer, there are a very specific design that was made for that attachment because of the extenuating circumstances of the size of the stairs and the beams and all that good stuff. When we went out there to do the substantial completion inspection, and that was the intent the entire time, because we had received notice from Consensus in the week's meeting prior that they were ready for it. We observed that the railings that were installed were not installed per what was approved in the shop drawings. What was installed was the original set of shop drawings, not associated with revision 4. So pretty much the issue there was the connections that were installed were not per the warranties that the town has paid for and per the design specifications of the Hilti program that was used for it. So meaning that if a Hilti representative came out there and observed what was installed, they would say, we're not backing this. If something happens to someone in the public, we're not protecting it. You're at fault. The railings were constructed in a way that also posed dangers to the exterior beams and stairs because of breakout strengths, stuff like that, the proximity that they had to be and made to other connections. So with those certain issues on top of the submittal issues, the stairs were outright rejected completely in their entirety. The issue now that the contractor and the design team faces is when they, because it was performed in that manner, now when they remove those railings because of the epoxy system that has been installed, it will damage the concrete. That system is not meant to be removed because it's meant to be a one and done ordeal. It can be removed and it will be removed, and when it does, it's going to damage the concrete. So when that is completed, we will then repair the concrete, and then by that time, hopefully the new railings should have been manufactured, and it'll be as easy as installing it, and we're good to go. That is the main issues of the monumental stair right now. Is as far as public safety, they are not at that point yet. And Collins will not approve nor sign anything that says otherwise, because we're not gonna have anyone lose a PE license over bad practice.
I have one follow-up question. All the
Yeah.
stairs that need to be adjusted are
Mhm.
too high, or too low?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so all those are easily adjusted in comparison to, no stairs are getting ripped out, no stairs are getting demolished and rebuilt. That is not how this goes. They can be grinded down or built up to be level and code compliant. The ramp. Surface cracks occur in concrete, and this was the response that I provided to Consensus at 2:00 this afternoon. After the response that I received was, Consensus previously brought this upon the attention of Collins Engineering, and it was determined that nothing needed to be done, that the cracks are just surface cracks. So as of now, we've asked Consensus to provide written approval of that we said that no cracks were of any concern. If they can approve or provide us with that, then, something will be done about that. Surface cracks occur in concrete based upon the strength of the concrete, what kind of concrete it is, what admixtures are placed in it, curing times, all of that stuff. Surface cracks are the initiation of any sort of crack. You do have surface cracks in everything, in your bridges, in your walkways, in your patios, all of that stuff. What we observed was called a reflective crack, meaning that the crack has connected in a manner inside the concrete that water that comes from the top of the concrete has found a way to fully filtrate through the bottom of the concrete, which is, and this is the response we provided them today, is over time going to degrade the concrete. So what you're seeing, that white buildup underneath the ramp, is degradation of concrete. Eventually, over time, once that hits the reinforcement enough and the finish on the reinforcement wears away, then you're going to start getting rust staining and section walls pouring out of the bottom of your ramp as well. We provided specifically the section of code that it required, that to be repaired. And that would be, let me read it right here for you. Within the contract specifications of it is volume 1, section 033000-1.7 and 033000-3.5. Those are the specification documents that require the cracks to be repaired in the concrete. Again, apart from it being in the contract documents, good practice would ensure that certain cracks are not apparent at time of completion. If they were surface cracks, we would say they're surface cracks, no need to worry. At this point, approximately 1 year later, that there is that much efflorescence buildup, and eventually we'll be rust sanding. This is Collins Engineers giving you a structural observation for free, telling you, hey, something's not right, these need to be sealed now. If they're sealed now, we're good to go. If they're not, and they're sealed 10 years from now, what damage is done is done. That it cannot be repaired unless the ramp is destroyed in some manner and replaced with new concrete. Not optional. Per the specifications, per the documents, it gets fixed. I know there's some other big ticket ones.
Mr. Mayor. Zane, my concern has been the delay in a lot of stuff showing up. So last October, I walked up the ramp. It was there. I don't know when they completed it. But here we are a year later, 10 months later, worrying about railings.
Yeah.
When were the railings ordered?
The railings were provided to Consensus on December 21st of 2022. We proceeded to ask Consensus in January, February, March, April, and May if the railings had been ordered, where the shop drawings were. We had not received anything. And they were provided to Consensus specifically on December 21st because the intention for us to expedite them before a holiday was we were still aiming for April 16th completion date. That was the goal. They told us they needed that immediately to be able to get done by April 16th. So when we hit May and June and we still hadn't seen really any shop drawings, we started to apply a bit more pressure. So that's when those railings were provided. They were initially, the first set of monumental stair railings were delivered, I want to say approximately a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. It's not a extenuating process though once the installation begins. It's a matter of kind of what they're doing now with the ramp, putting them up there, providing a temporary connection, making sure everything checks off, and then putting the formal attachments in there, and you're done.
At the time that you do these, like the monumental staircase.
Yeah.
When did that get poured?
So the monumental stair got poured December, I believe 21st of 2021.
Okay, so it's been over 2 years.
Yeah.
Since the monumental stairs. Don't you guys do any inspections or whatever
Yes.
after that got
So-
done to make sure that the job was done right when it was done instead of waiting until the end?
Yeah, so we have multiple reports where we've addressed those issues. And the response that I gave Consensus today in regards to the ADA ramp cracks is that it is not the responsibility of the engineer nor architect in any portion of the contract or anything to control and or strictly observe means and methods of the contractor. It is the contractor's good faith with his liability insurance and his legal contract with the client to ensure that everything is code compliant when it is completed, with certain means and methods variations allowed. Same thing with the cracks. We have to give Consensus in good faith the benefit of the doubt up until the very end to ensure that everything is per the specifications and contract documents. We observed X amount of things that were not, so we listed those out. That's it.
Do we have a completion date as of now?
So today we talked about during the meeting, the schedule. They said the last thing that they needed, was the conversation to be had with the railing manufacturer about the new set of monumental stair railings. They told us they should have that today and that we should have a new schedule, by the end of the week was the goal. That was kind of the last thing they told us they were waiting on.
No, we don't know if they get what they say they need. and they get the schedule by the end of the week, we still don't have an estimated completion date?
No, so the ADA ramp is currently, as pieces are delivered, they're being installed. The monumental stair, per the last update we had got about the monumental stair, it will take at least 6 to 7 weeks for those to be manufactured. So from the time that they tell us they have manufactured those railings or began manufacturing, it should take approximately 6 to 7 weeks for those to be completely manufactured. Then for the other update with the coating, it should take another 2.5 weeks for all of those sections to be coated and brought on site. So at minimum, 9 weeks if they were ordered today.
Mr. Mayor, again, I think this is a complicated enough project that you rely on, the contractor relies on the engineer, who relies on the architect, who relies on other consultants, who relies on code interpretation, who relies on this, relies on that. Having one person come up here and stand in front of everyone and say, oh, we did everything perfectly, it's all their fault.
We offered to have
Then,
consensus and
well,
let's repeat here.
But that is not our role to manage this project. 3.5 years ago, this council voted to not hire a professional project manager. It was a vote of 4-3. So it is not council's role to manage this project. But we are relying on the architect engineer that in contract negotiations with consensus demanded to be the town's representative. So I would still encourage you to sit down with the rest of the design team, with the construction team, with the inspectors, with the other contractors and suppliers that are providing, some of the plumbing and electrical things that are in here, that are providing the handrails, because there's more than, oh, we approved it a year ago. It's been around in circles several times, and you know that's true. So you approved something, but you approved something that couldn't be purchased. So it's gone back and forth.
Is there something specifically you're referencing that couldn't be purchased?
The whole thing on handrails and has been ongoing since the beginning of the project. And everybody wants to point fingers at value engineering. These handrails were not part of value engineering. These were part of a design that was not spec'd in the original specification. The original monumental stairs was a beautiful picture, but it didn't meet the elevation of the podium and it didn't meet the elevation of the ground. So while we're trying to build this thing, we're having to design features because they weren't complete in the bid specifications. So it's unreasonable to just say, pick one thing and say, oh, well, we approved it here and it never happened and it's their fault. Well, because I'm pretty sure we can get somebody else in here that will say, well, let me show you this letter we wrote. Well, let me show you this RFI. And here's revision 8 of an RFI responses in some of these items. So, we are relying on the design team to work together with the construction company to come up with ideal solutions to the problems we're facing. We have faced problems since day one. We can't afford the materials that were originally spec'd out. They're 4 or 5 times as much as we want. We've got a spec for material that was approved, but it's got a 52-week lead time. Well, no, the project doesn't want to wait a year to get some pretty little doofab that goes someplace. Sit down together, talk about these things, come up with a solution to solve the problem. If there is actually a problem, work together to solve the problem. Don't stand up here in front of the public, in front of council, and point fingers. Sit down with the other members of this team because we are supposed to be a team. It's been a hell of a struggle since day one, I will grant you. Because we needed that project manager day one and we had one hell of a deal, but that didn't work. Council voted not to do that. So we put it into the hands of an inexperienced administrator, and that didn't work real well either. We tried to bring in a volunteer. He's a resident in town. He was an expert project manager. He was a volunteer. No, we didn't want him involved. So, I mean, we've had problems, yes, absolutely. But if the entire project team can't get together, talk through the issues, identify a solution, not my wish list, not my vision of a Taj Mahal, but a practical solution to move this project forward so the pier can be the best it possibly can be without costing the town any more money. I mean, yeah, there's 22, 25 items on here that have credibility. 23 of them have been resolved. There's probably about 5 that really need all the heads to come together and say, what are we doing? What is our approach? Because I'll guarantee you, not everybody's on the same page. Because that's not what I hear, reports, that we have the administrator make. He never addressed that, there's 42 pages of issues. That the meetings on Monday morning, they're only an hour long. There's no way you can possibly go through all of these items and come to a resolution on what can we and can't we do. There's time, there's quality, and there's money. Pick 2 and get it done. But work together, find an optimal solution, find the material that we can procure, find the material that can be installed, find the material that doesn't cost us 6 times as much as what's available elsewhere. Work together, not against each other, not against the town. This kind of thing, going out and having Mr. Adair have to FOIA it and going out and saying, oh, there's 42 pages of code violations. No, there's not. No, there is not.
I guess this really doesn't matter, but who, if anyone, published the report? Has that been nailed down?
Freedom of information, buddy. All they had to do is get an indication that letter existed. Where
So
that came from,
I guess
have no
what
idea.
Collins really wants to know is who took substantial completion discrepancy letter and turned it into 42 pages of code violations is what we really want to know. Because at no point have we ever said that there's 42 pages of code violations, nor do we stand by that.
But again, you could have just made a phone call that said, you know what? We've done a series of walkthrough. We've had 5 different people do independent evaluations. I'd really like to sit down and go through their reports with the team and decide what's real. What do we really need to address?
So,
Because we're not looking for a substantial completion. They were looking for a punch list.
yeah, if
And the
the
punch list has
project
been
is not
completed.
substantially complete, we can't perform a punch list inspection. Now, I will say, if all of these issues, as the response that I received today, if the percentage of these that have been completed are completed, if that's true, then when that substantial completion inspection comes along, there will be very little amount of work left. We will be at a point where an actual punch list can be completed, and yes, then that should involve things such as dust on an exit sign.
Well, and that has been addressed, but this is what I'm saying. If there are real issues with the remainder of these items, these things that are as-built conditions that for some reason an inspector didn't agree with or didn't inspect to the standard of the design spec, or these additional features that weren't part of a design spec but are required for code compliance, then sit down with the team and hammer them out. Who's going to pay for it? How long is it going to take? What exactly do we need? But we hide behind, I don't have it in writing. You can't prove I said that. Well, you know what? Sit down and talk, come up with an agreement on how we're moving forward to get this project completed.
Yeah.
It's been too long.
Yeah, agreed.
That's my only point.
Mr. Mayor. Zane, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, you just said monumental stairs will take 9 weeks or longer.
Mhm.
What if we just block them off and?
Blow them off?
No, I'm just saying,
Y'all designed it.
just limit access to those so nobody can go to them and open the ramp and the other stairs let's use the pier. I think people in town want us to go on the pier. And
I think more or less you would have to talk to your fire marshal about that before anyone else. That's a matter of allowment of egress. That's the whole reason the ADA ramp is there, is because there had to be X number of routes of egress. So if we block one off, we don't hit that. So
I understand.
I got it, but
I have a question. The monumental stairs and all that stuff, we've talked about that till we're blue in the face.
Yeah.
Like, and you say now it's part of the design relates to y'all and consensus.
Yeah.
Why don't y'all get together and see if there's a manufacturer out there that's got what will work?
Yeah,
May not
so-
be the prettiest, it may not be the grandest, it may not be whatever.
So that's
It
what
works.
those railings are now. In comparison to what was originally there, you went from what was originally there, which Ms. Keating is referring to as the Taj Mahal.
Oh, yeah,
She's
the
correct.
lights, the gleaming
You
lights.
now have a bunch of steel bars or aluminum bars. I mean, so you've got railings. You
Right.
don't have pretty railings, you don't have, but you've got code compliant railings. So we've done what we could, but if there's structural elements compromised because of how the railings that were installed are not code compliant, they cannot be installed. Once they are installed without anyone's approval or inspection, they're now void. So to be fair, the actual number, I think the town paid approximately $340,000 for those railings. That was with the additional coating, that was for them to be made out of aluminum. Now, unless we can get those repaired and replace all that good stuff, the town's just out about $100,000. And that's for the coating that was ruined with all warranties when they were made to fit on the pier.
It's aluminum, it can be repowder coated, can it not?
It's not powder coating.
What is it?
It's a Kydex cover. That was what the town paid additional
Okay.
money for.
Can it not be redone on the same railings?
Those railings are now compromised because they were never intended to be cut or ruined. Your warranties for the railing, your warranty for the coating are all void. They no longer, so if y'all go out there in 5 years and your railings are rusted, guess what? Your railings are rusted. You paid an extra $110,000 for absolutely nothing. Ruined. Versus if they rust in 5 years and your warranties aren't voided, you get new railings. Free of charge.
Is this a cooperation problem?
No, I mean,
And
kinda, I mean, this,
I'm not trying to say it's your fault, but you know, if it's everybody's fault, then everybody that's
Yeah, I mean,
at fault needs to get
yeah,
together.
respectfully, I'd come in here tonight, kind of thinking I had some good news to give, that we were getting a schedule and those issues were getting addressed, and we had a bit more descriptive responses as far as what addressed meant. That was us working together because Matt got that to me. I told him at 7 o'clock last night and he got it to me at 8 o'clock this morning, so I would consider that a positive. I wasn't aware, I guess I'll say, of the different interpretations of the discrepancy letter we sent, which, you know, that is what it is, but those things have to be fixed or else we're not coming back out there to perform a substantial completion inspection.
Mr. Mayor, talking about your 42-page list, I'd never heard of it. And it's done in August. You said.
I hadn't heard of it until
You
I
did
was
it.
made aware that my report was
Your
a
report.
42 pages.
Right,
I know.
right. Well, that's
You
what I'm
did
saying,
it.
and it's in August.
Yeah.
And when I did, I got a call from Mr. O'Brien, the reporter.
Yeah.
I called Mr. Benson. What in the hell is this?
Yeah.
And he said, well, can you send me that? That was on the 19th of this month.
We were made aware Tuesday morning before we had our meeting. And in
I'm
fact,
going through it.
this response, the one I'm holding in my hand with 9 copies, was given to me by Matt because I told Matt, hey, I'm gonna come in here and try and help everyone out, specifically consensus, and keep them from getting put on the griller anymore. That's the point that's why I said be more descriptive. So I understand what this is being addressed means because I talk to them every day, every minute of the day. The town doesn't know what this has been addressed means. The public does not know what this has been addressed means. So we worked together and got this, and
But
apparently the current standing or understanding is not the same.
But I'm just trying to get a point. And I know I didn't have it. If anybody else wants to speak up, they have it.
Mm.
But when we get blasted by stuff that, oh, y'all should have known, y'all knew, no, we didn't.
Your inspection was on August 23rd.
Yeah.
24th.
Okay, and council was not informed of giving any information on it,
Mhm.
the actual report, until September 19th.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's uncalled
So
for.
again, that was done in a manner, as we're all discussing here, as we're all big boys, grown men, we can all work together and handle this without council need to be made aware of everything. That's where we were at, and then when we were to find out that that's not how that was being put out, then.
But then at the same time, it was on August 30th,
Mhm.
which was 20 days before council even knew anything about it,
Mhm.
that a Freedom of Information Act went in, and that report was released to the public.
Yeah.
So the time lapse,
And they are 42 pages.
Yeah, it's 42 pages, yes, correct.
They are 42 pages here, y'all.
Yeah.
And I don't care how you look at it or when you got 42 pages of violations,
they're
I
not
don't care how,
42
I
pages
don't
of
care how,
violations. They're
I
not.
don't care how the public receives it, they're 42 pages there.
Now, I will say, in agreement with consensus and LS3P, and we talked to Mr. Stamey about it yesterday, this is not your building a new wing on your residential home type project. This is thousands of patrons are going to partake in visiting the site. This is massive amounts of code paperwork to go through. This is permits, this is everything. This is gonna have a whole lot more things on a punch list regardless than your quarter round in your house having some chips in it and you want it replaced. So I necessarily do not foresee, nor with discussion with consensus or LS3P, foresee that 42 pages was really anything surprising. Is it upsetting that it got out and now we're kind of sitting in the boat we're in now? Yes. But
You don't think that the railings and the structural of the stairs, so you don't think that was important?
Those are very important.
Well,
That's why
I mean,
we've
when you're
sent separate
sitting
notices.
there saying that you didn't think this was important, it must be pretty important.
I'll say it in this manner, and I'll keep it as clear and concise as that issue, that report was written between an engineer, a contractor, an architect, and the client, meaning specifically Mr. Vincent, to be addressed and corrected. That was it.
But
once those issues are corrected, we're in good standing. If they're not, we've got each individual issue to sort through.
But saying, anytime anything is written on paper, somebody can FOIA you.
Absolutely.
And that's what's happened. And it shows up to look really bad when you got 42 pages. I don't care how it's worded in here or what's done here. It looks pretty bad. Then you turn around and get another one with 20 more pages of other violations besides this.
Yeah.
So here's another violations that don't pertain to you. It pertains to somebody else. So there are problems out there.
Mm-hmm.
Who's at fault? I don't know. Maybe it is some of your fault. Maybe it's consensus fault. But there are problems out there. And it ain't just the stairs. I know for facts, that there are other problems out there has been addressed that should have been caught by the contractor before it ever was done. And if I was having something built, I would look for my contractor to do the right thing to start with. Our contractor did not do the right thing on a lot of things. And I do appreciate Collins Engineering following up and checking on a lot of things that this town wouldn't have known if it hadn't been for y'all. And I'm telling you, I appreciate it. They might some not like it, but I appreciate what you've done for us. But on that topic, are there anything else that you need to tell us about that is a major problem out there? Like the brackets that holds the shade structure out there, is them been fixed? Is the brackets on other things been fixed? Is them things that this town needs to know? And as they say, we didn't hire an engineer. It is us that is taking responsibility for this. I've kept up with this pier probably as much as anybody up here. I don't have the inside information that some does, but I have kept up with it. I go up there, I check on it. And I know for facts, me and another council person was up there on a lot of things that was caught by us.
And for that record, if anything comes up at a later date and it becomes apparent that it was not fixed, you will all receive a very large file of every single thing that was ever said on that project. Whether it be, this was repaired and replaced, this was fixed, we shouldn't have to fix this. Whoever's responsible, you will receive that file.
You're missing.
So if you open,
Mr. Mayor, you're missing the point. It's, you have Mr. Benson, is where that would go. Then he would bring that to us.
Yeah.
And then y'all work together. You, Consensus and LSP3 work together and get this job done.
and
That's all.
we do that, but there's a clear information delay between what we're achieving and when the town council gets it, such as this report.
And that relates back to Mr. Benson, he brings that to us.
That is understood. That is, we provide him.
Okay.
Mr. Vincent does not, there is no email that goes out that he is not attached to. There is not a document that goes out that he is not attached to. Phone calls, all of that.
That's all I'm asking.
Back to what I said earlier, y'all do work together every week.
Every day.
Every week, I know y'all have a meeting. It's between all of you. And if y'all can't discuss it and get it worked out, and I know for sure that a lot of discussion goes on that certain parties don't take into consideration or want to argue about things instead of trying to get it fixed. They want to delay it or argue about it. I know that happens. And like I said, y'all meet every week. Every week. Y'all have a meeting by telephone, communication.
Tuesday at 10 o'clock.
Yes, sir, every week. And and some people would want you to believe that y'all never communicate, that there are no communications, but they are. They are communications, but sometimes it just don't get done the way it's supposed to be done.
Mr. Mayor. I've heard a lot here tonight, but one thing I find I'm uncomfortable with, Cindy, why do you have information from Consensus that none of the rest of us have? You sit there and talk, because we don't have all the letters you have from Consensus.
Because I've asked for them throughout the project. I have a file on this project. I took this letter and did a search for RFIs because I asked for the RFI log 2 years ago. Because I've done my homework up until today and have all along.
Okay, so you got all that letters from the past.
Yes.
Because it sure felt like you were working for Consensus today.
No, I took this report and I categorized it into everything that was said in this report and by whom it was said. That's all that's in this. And I used my engineering background and my understanding of construction to interpret some of what was here, to categorize it into punch list items, as-built design issues, additional features not in the original design spec, not applicable to this project. Yeah, what was the last one? I think that's it. And there were 4. No, I have the same thing you have, and the information that I have compiled over the course of this project when other issues have come up, because I've remained engaged in it and concerned with what's been going on.
Well, I too.
And I asked Bill Shanahan for reports that he was getting. And I asked him for why he wasn't managing to a list of RFIs, and he said we were. So I asked him to see the database of RFIs, when they're issued, what they're about, who responds when, how many revisions they undergo. All of it is documentation I've asked for over the years.
And y'all do have the right to access all of that information. I've offered that before. If you want something, you want to see something, let Jerry know, or talk with Jerry, contact me directly, and I'll send you whatever it is that you're wanting.
We just don't want to waste your time with 7 people calling you all through the week, different times, and running around getting information for all of us. You provide it to Jerry, Jerry then can provide it to us.
Okay.
That is,
Yeah.
everybody's got another lane they're in.
Yeah.
What road you on?
So real quick, because I'm sure everyone is kind of wanting this to end except for me, because I want to be as clear and as open with everyone about this, so we kind of clear it up here. The monumental stair, that issue is currently in progress being addressed. The ADA ramp is currently being installed. From what we looked at a few days ago, looks good so far. So we're good there. The OCRM stair, I'm just waiting for Frank Anderson. I think he got back yesterday. Got to talk with him because we're on 2 different pages about how that was designed. Those are breakaway stairs like you see down the beach for residential. They have to be designed in a certain way so that they are not permanent, meaning if a storm comes through, they're destroyed intentionally. So once we clarify that one tomorrow morning, that one's good to go. What was another big one? Because I know there's some big ones here that draw the most concern. The OCRM stair, the ADA ramp, the monumental stair.
The platform,
As far as what, the podium?
the podium itself.
The podium is, the repairs for the most part of the podium have been performed as the project's went along. So the stuff that was, I think, brought up a few days ago as far as underneath the podium, as far as honeycombing, spalling, stuff like that, all of that stuff has already been addressed. That's why none of that's in this report.
So the slope of the
slope.
concrete is been addressed, been fixed?
Yes, so that has, that had the reapplication product I was explaining to you yesterday put on it, the self leveler. And just so everyone understands why that issue came up, just objectively, no consensus cons, anything. The idea was to have multiple pours of concrete simply for it to be more manageable. That's a lot of concrete sitting up there, about 6,000 cubic yards, I believe, for the entire thing. No one can manage that much concrete at one time. That's why we had to divvy it up between the stairs, the podium, the ramp, that stuff. A lot of those issues that have come up with that podium is because of how much concrete it was at one time. That's it. There's no opinionated to that. Large amounts of concrete require a large amount of work to make sure that it's level, even and solid like it's supposed to. The goal or the objective past that was to then level it with a self-leveling compound and coat it so that it looks nice. That issue was dealt with. Now, if you go out there and it rains and there's some puddles,
It does
there's,
need to have
yeah,
a slope to it.
yeah, so it was designed with the slope.
Yeah.
That was the intent, is put it at its max slope without it being barred from being able to be walked on because of ADA stuff. It has a slope to it. Now, when I cured what was actually there versus after the application, the slope was a lot better as far as what was intended to be on there. So just because you go out there and you see a puddle or 2 laying around, it is not collecting water. The idea is, and I can send you the reports, pictures of what the puddled water looked like before anything was done and what it looks like now. Now you just have rain puddles. Before you had pools. So that issue has been addressed. That issue is corrected. Cracks on the ramp, not optional, gets fixed. That's it. What's another one? I know some of them are just small little things, this and that, and I'm gonna hand y'all these before I leave. See y'all have them, but
So you're wrapping it up?
if y'all have more questions, we can go
You're
at this
wrapping it
forever.
up, I mean, as far as what this 42
Yes,
page
so
thing is pretty
those,
much said and done. And
yes, those issues are being addressed. They had already begun addressing those issues before that report and stuff were sent out. That's the big thing there. Before that report was ever sent out, they were already beginning to be addressed. Again, because we were dealing with it. So now it's not surprising that 2-3 weeks later that a majority of these issues have been knocked out. They've been working on it for a month. Anything else?
One final question from me.
Yep.
And it ain't got nothing to do with this report.
Yep.
Is, when was the date supposed to be that pier was supposed to be finished?
The last approved substantial completion date that was signed was May 2nd.
May the 2nd.
Yeah. That was, I believe, change order 15 pushed it a week and a half, 2 weeks. Is what we gave them for. It's 14 days from April 16th.
That's May the 2nd. So what is happening from that date till
So
closing date?
we received a new schedule. This is before we had that approved for May 2nd. We received a schedule that said we received a schedule on April 17th that had a claim for about 120 days attached to it. Hurricane claim, some delay claims, stuff like that. For us to continue the project and keep it functioning, we pretty much said, after talking with some third-party consultant that contractor hired and stuff, that at this point, it's just best that the project keep moving until you get it done. That's it. So that's what we're functioning under right now.
So the May 2nd is the date we're working off of.
Yeah. But as of, and this week, we're supposed to get a new schedule that doesn't pertain to any of that. It pertains to this list and when they think they'll have all that stuff done. So that's where we're functioning right now, is just get the pier done, get it done right, give us a schedule of when you actually anticipate getting all of this done.
Thank you, Zane.
So if we get that within a week, you will all have it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dane, thank you very much. I learned a lot.
Does anyone else, any more questions? Just anything in general? Again, if y'all need anything, any piece of information.
Stick around to after the meeting. There might be some of these people out here who might have a question or two.
Yeah,
Or either run.
I don't get beat up in the parking lot.
Thank you, Zane.
It's good.
You're a brave
All right,
man.
moving right along, the next thing is under the business section is the second reading of ordinance 230960, an ordinance of the town of Surfside Beach to amend certain sections of chapter 9, motor vehicles and traffic, chapter 12, streets, sidewalks, beaches, and other places of code ordinance of the town of Surfside Beach.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept ordinance 23-0960 for second reading.
Second.
Go ahead, Tab.
Hello. So nothing has changed since we had our first reading. But basically, these 3 charity events we're going to release them from pay to park. So the town administrator will have the opportunity to give them pay to park permits without coming to town council.
That will be in designated areas, right?
Correct. Not all.
Not all.
Yes, sir.
Well, and there is one other change, and that is in chapter 12, where it talks about the town's option to waive its fees that would be imposed on a third-party sponsored event. But if such event has a charitable purpose, that the town has the option to waive its fees. And since that is well within the financial responsibility of the town administrator, the section is being modified to just say that that is the town administrator's call, that to waive those fees does not have to come back through council for approval.
Yes, sir.
So are those the only 3 events that are going to be,
The 3 charity events right now, yes.
Well, provision has been added that allows free parking to be designated for other participants providing services to town-sponsored events.
Right.
Again, at the discretion of the
Of the town
administrator.
administrator, yes, ma'am.
Sort of falls under, Easter services, sunrise services. That would fall under other events. that
Other
he-
special events.
That he would be able to give privilege to without coming to the council.
That's the way I read it, yes.
Anybody else have any other questions? Any further discussion before we vote? Sherry?
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Holder,
Yes.
Mrs. Keating,
Yes,
Mr. Kinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Cracklaw,
Yes.
Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Mayor Hellier.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next thing on the agenda is the renewal of the 15th Judicial District Law Enforcement Network Mutual Aid Agreement.
Good evening. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Make a motion for the renewal of the 15th Judicial Court Law Enforcement Network Mutual Aid Agreement.
second.
Mayor, council, citizens, here today to ask you to renew the 15th Judicial Circuit Law Enforcement Network Mutual Aid Agreement. This agreement will run from October 1st of this year through September 30th of 2025. This agreement allows the police department to participate in the 15th Judicial Circuit LEN with other area law enforcement services pursuant to state law and as necessary in non-emergency situations. The police department has participated in the LEN since the program's inception many years ago. Our participation in the unit allows us the availability of manpower, resources, and equipment to combat DUI, driving under suspension, driving uninsured, and other dangerous driving behaviors that result in the loss of life and property in Horry and Georgetown counties. I have a little bit of a cold, sorry, I don't normally have this voice. Case law requires that multi-jurisdictional mutual aid agreements be presented to and approved by local governing bodies. Our current participation in the LEN remains unchanged. The measure will ensure that we are in compliance with state law and regarding mutual aid agreements. Area law enforcement agencies participate in the agreement, including police departments, sheriff's departments, and the South Carolina Highway Patrol. Checkpoints are held monthly around the circuit, including one hosted by Surfside Beach each year. Checkpoint brings approximately 60 law enforcement officers to Surfside Beach for safety checkpoints and saturation patrol. If the council agrees to the mutual aid agreement, it will run from October 1st of this year again to September 30th of 2025. My decision paper does say that I recommend that council approve the agreement and direct the town administrator to sign the agreement. However, I need to make a correction to that. The agency coordinator for the LEN has asked that council approve the agreement as required, but the chief of police sign the agreement. So the last page there asks for the chief of police signature from the town administrator. Only change I wanted to point out there. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. It's just kind of a housekeeping item that we have to do every 2 years.
You get good cooperations through the other law enforcement and you go back and forth, or you can be going into Horry County more, or just
It's
general stuff?
Each month, there's a checkpoint
Right.
around Horry and Georgetown counties, and each agency is required to send at least one participant to each checkpoint to continue to maintain manpower and support each other agency through their checkpoints.
Have we ever had a problem with this?
Not at all.
In the past?
No, it's been an asset to
And it's been
the town.
beneficial to the town.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make an amended motion, please. That is to accept the renewal of the 15th Judicial Circuit Law Enforcement Network Mutual Aid Agreement and authorize Chief Hoffman to execute such document.
Second.
Anybody have any further questions of the chief? Anybody have any further discussion before we vote on it? Sherry?
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Holder,
Yes.
Mrs. Keating,
Yes,
Mr. Kinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Cracklaw,
Yes.
Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Mayor Hellier.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, the next thing on the agenda is the Resolution 230164, a resolution to adopt a social media policy for the town of Surfside Beach. And that's Administrator Benson.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this decision paper was drafted back in February, so this was prior to me coming in the mid of May. So at that time, staff believed that a policy was needed at that time, but was never presented to town council. So the subject here is the town of Surfside Beach social media policy. The town of Surfside Beach has a social media presence that represents the town as a whole and individual departments. The town operates and maintains these sites as a means to keep the citizens and businesses and visitors informed of various events, department activities, and functions of government for the purpose of transparency and engagement. The Municipal Association of South Carolina has provided guidance to municipalities to ensure that the citizens' first rights are not violated by the government. The International Municipal Lawyers Association suggests that municipalities post the following language on its sites. The purpose of this site is to discuss matters of public interest in and to the municipality as identified and raised by the municipality discussion. We encourage you to submit comments that are on topic, but please address your comments to the topic discussed. This is a form limited to this specific topics identified and raised by the municipality. The attached social media policy is intended to establish the town's media sites as a limited public forum that is moderated. The policy provides clear terms and conditions to ensure civil and on-topic discussion. I did hear the comments from the residents. This is not about criticism. This is not about the discussion. And this is not about the information. When you turn to the policy, it's about vulgar language, personal attacks on staff and public officials, and discrimination.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple comments here. One, the resolution is lacking content. In my opinion, it's not drafted properly. It's a bunch of whereas clauses, and then it says miraculously, we all agreed to something that is nowhere closely attached to this piece of paper. So should we choose to do this, it at least has to somehow incorporate the actual social media policy into the resolution to go forward with that. But that said, there are three kinds of communication: one-way, two-way, and three-way. One way is I just provide information. Two-way is whomever I provide the information can come back and explain or indicate that they understood what I told them. Or three-way, I can say something, they can come back with questions, I can clarify or further answer questions. Instead of putting a social media policy out there, I mean, a typical website is pretty much a one-way communication because there's nobody usually there unless you've got the tag of, click here and you can talk to an agent, whatever. It's usually one-way communication. So if we should choose to do this at all, which sometimes, there's reasons to have a policy on something, but then it's a catch-22 what you get into. I would recommend that our Facebook page operate more like a web page in that it is disseminating information. And when we disseminate that information, we can say at the bottom of those posts, for further information, contact the town administrator, the communications coordinator, the events coordinator, the public works director, whomever it applies to, such that, and then in each of those posts, there are no comments. It's just one-way communication. That way we're not getting into anybody violating anybody's rights, First Amendment, nothing. It's just one-way communication. It's just information put out there. And that is probably a safer, more amenable, the social media policy than to even get caught up into, well, who decides what comments are out of place? And, well, if so-and-so comments to it and I don't like what they say, blah, 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 you don't get into that whole mess. It's just, there are no comments. You want to issue comments, you can create your own post, or, you forward that to your own page, you write your own comments on your own page. So I just don't see that. I think this gets us in more trouble than it helps as it's written.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add that I don't think there's anyone here that is a First Amendment rights specialist and could say what can and cannot be said on a Facebook page definitively. And trying to categorize certain things as the problem, I guess the biggest problem is who decides. Because I could edit it or be the monitor. I could say that's fine. Another person would say, no, that needs to not be out there. So it does open a big can of worms. I think a government-run social media should not be censored in any way, or it shouldn't be really a two-way communication, like Ms. Keating says. It should just be disseminating information and saying where, maybe click on here and you can leave a message to whoever is concerned or whatever. But to actually have it open to all comments, I think is asking for problems. And people on Facebook, they're anonymous. You can create as many profiles as you want. And there's people out there that are haters, and there's people that just want to cause problems, and you're inviting them onto a Facebook page, and then you're going to censor them. In effect, that's what you're going to do, and I just don't think it's right.
Mr. Mayor?
Give me a second. I sort of agree with the same thing, that, the way that we've always done it is that when we post something on the internet on our town website, comments is always turned off. And so that there isn't a two-way communication. But I think that, leaving the comments on for us to take an individual's comment to us that they don't like and censor that one person because of their idea, I think is a wrong thing. So I'm more of a belief that we should turn off the comments altogether on the site, and that, the public has the right to come in like they did tonight. And I agree. I like what, they had to say, and I think we ought to take that into consideration. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know if Jared had gone through this, what his opinion of it was.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, couple of items. The town is certainly within its right to implement a policy, and as has been proposed here, if the desire was to have a forum, a public forum, but make it a limited public forum. Now, the policy decision for council to make is, would it rather have that forum be available, be public, and be restrictive, at least in some measure, or would it rather be, as some of you are suggesting, basically not be a public forum, which is strictly what was described as a one-way communication? That is sort of the first policy decision for you all to make. If it decides that they wanted to have a public forum that involved community or public engagement in some sort, then the town is certainly within its rights to implement a policy like the one that's being proposed. The town is not obligated to be compelled to disseminate or bear the imprimatur of vulgar language, illegal activity, personal identifying information, trademarks, etc. Now, as a practical matter, these things usually turn on a matter of enforcement more so than the written policy itself. And is it actually being administered in a consistent fashion and that sort of thing? That's where it gets a little bit more difficult. But in terms of what is reasonably within the town's authority to do, a policy such as the one implemented is certainly consistent with the law. If the desire was to have a limited public forum that engaged with the public on the Facebook page. Hopefully that answers your question.
All right, thank you.
It did.
Is there any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to send this back to the drawing board, that we consider adopting a social media policy that is only a one-way communication, and to canvass our staff as to their opinions, since we do have a fire department site, we have a police department site that does ask for, support and information back. Just make sure that what policy we're trying to establish makes sense for all of our town operations before bringing it forward again.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion on that, on the motion? Sherry?
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Holder,
Yes.
Mrs. Keating,
Yes.
Mr. Kinkin,
No.
Mr. Krecklow,
Yes.
Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Mayor Hellier.
Yes. Okay, moving right along, the next thing is a request for qualifications to examine and evaluate business activity. And that's Administrator Jensen.
Mr. Mayor and Town Council, the subject is to requested qualifications to examine and evaluate business activity. The purpose is Town Council to review and approve the attached request for qualifications from HDL companies. There is business activity within the town limits of Surfside Beach that does not have the proper licensing to conduct business in town and or pay the appropriate taxes as required. HDL companies submitted an RFQ on September the 15th as per the advertisement and for the opportunity to work with the town of Surfside Beach. HDL companies was established in 1983 to maximize local government revenues. HDL companies is designed to minimize the impact on staff and meeting its needs in a comprehensive approach. HDL companies is the only RFQ that met the deadline for September 15th. The recommendations to authorize the town administrator to negotiate a contract on behalf of the town council.
Any questions? Oh, I need a motion first.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to authorize the town administrator to finalize a contract with HDL to provide certain consulting services to enhance our business license process. And Mr. Mayor, we've had, I believe it was Bobby Monroe in front of us a couple times talking about this service. And it's predicated on them identifying contractors or businesses within the town that do not have proper licensing. And they get paid by sharing what additional licensing revenue we receive from bringing these companies into compliance. So for the first 2 years, just for example, if one of these businesses produces $1,000 of business license revenue for the town, HDL would get $500,000, the town would get $500,000 for the first 2 years. After that second year, from them being identified as non-compliant, bringing them into compliance, every year thereafter, the town would receive 100% of the business license revenue. So it's very much a win-win situation. So I would assume that also the contract to be entered into would have a minimum term of 2 years, so that at the conclusion of the 2 years, we would be able to evaluate whether their services have, been sufficiently beneficial to the town to go forward on an additional term.
I had a meeting with Ms. Calhoun, who is the Horry County auditor. And she came in and we were discussing things and she was saying that every jurisdiction, including North Myrtle Beach and Myrtle Beach, they all have issues with people not getting the right proper business licenses. And she asked me the question of how many people had property rentals in Surfside Beach that were registered to do that. So I went in and I talked to our business license and they told me that I think it was like 352. Okay. I went back and talked to Horry County, who was there in the meeting, and they said, well, that's funny because we have 3,000 something on our books on people who live in Surfside Beach that should have a business license on it. So they, in our discussion, they were telling us about the same company that Jerry's talking about right now. They're used in North Myrtle Beach. They're used in a lot of other jurisdictions around here. And it's been very cooperative and very beneficial to the other jurisdictions. So, anybody else have any discussion on it? Sherry?
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Holder?
Yes.
Mrs. Keating?
Yes.
Mr. Kinkin?
Yes.
Mr. Crecklaw?
Yes.
Mr. Stamey?
Yes.
Mayor Hellier?
Yes. All right, the next thing on the agenda is public comments, and these are public comments that are based on town services and business conducted. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Ron Ott, 10 Surfside Beach. Yesterday, Monday, I was coming early in the morning. I listened to, on my truck radio, 92.5, and they were having a mock-up, laughing, joking about this town, about 42 pages of violations. Now, most of my life, I worked in large tool projects and spent a lot of time in Dearborn with the Ford Motor Company. When you have 42 pages of violations, the first thing that comes to my mind is we got a whole lot of critical safety items, or this shouldn't even be brought up. And how does a radio station have this? This was not right. Something went wrong in communication. So no, I needed to know the truth and how this evolved. So you don't go to the internet and find out. You come to this meeting here, and that's where we're going to find out the truth. What happened? I still don't know what the violations were. So besides a light and a handrail, I've heard about that handrail for 5 years, and it's still not here. But that's another thing. But the object of a radio station had this information before everybody else in this town found out about it, and they were just laughing it up. And I just thought, that's why I'm here instead of sitting home on my couch to find out the truth. I don't want to be here, but what happened with these 42 pages of violations should never have been out in the public like that. That should have been kept within the construction team and our elected officials. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi. Sean Fallon, 411 Cedar Drive North. I look at all of you here as a team. I don't know if I would think everybody in this room would agree. This is our town's council, and you guys should be a team. Well, a team works together. And it's quite obvious from today, there was a question, well, how do you have that information and I don't? And then I requested it. Well, as a team, when you get a piece of information, you should share it among your teammates, in my opinion. So once again, education. You know, the residents here, one council person has this information, the other council person doesn't. Where's the team effort among all of you? Because it's quite obvious there's not a team here in front of me tonight. And that's my opinion. But number two, there was a peer committee, correct? And it was disbanded, if I'm speaking right, or what happened to the peer committee? You know, did they bring up some things that were discussed tonight? I don't know, because the team didn't share that information or didn't share it that I could read it anywhere. So I'm asking, as the election goes on and as you work here, the council should be a team, not individual, I did this. There's no I in team. We hear that through football, college, pro, whatever. Your guys are a team. Start acting like one.
Okay, Robert Kraus, Fourth Avenue North, Chairman of the suspended peer committee. And I'll just start by talking about that. We had nothing to do with construction. So for anybody who thinks that, we weren't looking at that at all. That was never part of our purview. But I do want to talk more about the recent peer news. We heard criticisms and defenses of Collins and Consensus. I don't know who's at fault. That's not what I'm here to address. And I don't know about the seriousness of all the construction issues. That'll all come through. But what I want to talk about is how this is handled in the town. 2 weeks ago, September 12th, this council had a meeting, and we heard the same story about missing handrails and insulation that was heard for years. That's troubling in its own right, because the town never says, time's up, guys. You've got to commit to a date. I worked in the automotive industry for 35 years, and if I changed my dates twice, maybe I could get away with it. The third time I'd be fired. This is just, we cannot have this happening. But we just say, okay, give us a new date and we'll carry on. But we then find out that the town was in possession of this report. And I don't know if it's just a communication issue between the administrator and council. I don't know if it's a determination that this stuff isn't serious, but it sure sounds serious. And every time this kind of stuff happens, we get a FOIA request, somebody in the press gets that, writes a story, puts it on the TV news, and we look more foolish than we would have if we had just said, hey, we got an inspection report and we failed some items. We need to address these. Maybe they're not serious, maybe they are. But we just look foolish when this stuff happens and comes out in the press every time. I'd like to just hear the town say, hey, we made a mistake, sorry. Or you guys need to know this, and you come and tell us. We're the ones paying for this pier, we're the customers. So we need to get that kind of information. And then continue with the dedication ceremony, in light of all this, council needs to know how to read the crowd. That was not a good decision. So thank you for, oh yeah, and then the last thing I'll say is, I can only imagine when we find out what this all costs, if you think the reactions have been bad so far. So thanks for the opportunity to speak, and we'll see where it goes from here. Thank you.
Harry Coleman, 10th Avenue North. I'd also like to talk about the so-called transparency that isn't. I think the big mistake was not letting people know. My wife and I polled the council to find out if you guys knew about this. Most of you said you didn't. Some of you were a little vague on how much you knew. But the problem is not to keep secrets. You shouldn't keep secrets from the town and the residents. I disagree totally with the first person that had up here. We're all adults here. People make mistakes. If there was something wrong, let us know. The worst thing that possibly could have happened. You kept it quiet, or somebody kept it quiet, and they found out about it. It would have been much easier just to say, you know, we had a 42-page report. There was some things bad, but most of it was all right. But to keep it in secrecy and not let people know. This thing blew up bigger than it should have blown up. And looking at you all for the last 4 years, or some of you only for 2 years, you guys don't get along. You can see that some of you don't even like each other at all. The way things are supposed to work, you might not like people, but you work for us. You represent us. You're our advocates. And to get this town running and to get it running right, you don't have to like each other, but you have to try to get together and compromise and get the best deal for the citizens. That's what it's all about. It's not my team against your team. And believe me, you're not the first council who's done this. I've been here 15 years. Just about every single council did it. 4 against 3, 4 against 3. You have 7-0 when you approve the agenda, maybe you approve the minutes. I don't know, I mean, I'm not with you guys. You know, I don't know how you relate, but it doesn't look like you relate at all. You have to get together. You have to talk. You have to compromise, and you're not doing it, folks. And who suffers for it? The people in this town suffer for it. If you were a strong team together, we'd probably have a lot less problems with that pier. Thank you.
Dave Pellegrino, Second Avenue North. I just have a question, maybe you guys can touch on it in council comments. The original timeline dated, completion date of the pier was April 8th, 2022. And obviously we had COVID, we had multiple change orders, we had a whole bunch of stuff going on. But in the second paragraph of the original consensus contract, it states that there would be a penalty of $500 a day for every day late after that date. Obviously, you guys changed the date because of different things going on, but for 470 days late, and all that wasn't from COVID, all that wasn't from change orders. Have we charged them any penalty money, and do we plan to charge any penalty money is my question. Thank you.
Good evening, council, residents. Timothy Courtney, South Poplar Drive. I look at everybody, I've been here a pretty long time now. I have a 16-year-old who's my youngest. He started late, me and my wife. One thing I want to ask you, what I haven't heard about this pier was cameras. Believe it, we live in a different world now. I think it's important that we have cameras and we have it tied in with the police department. We had invested over $200,000 in a system a couple of years back. And I don't hear no talk about any cameras on the pier. So keep that in mind. The other thing I'd like to tell you is that I have a 16-year-old who's going on 17. She had a homecoming. And it's very unfortunate that my daughter's got to come home from St. James and tell me what an embarrassment our town is. And it shouldn't be this way. We are the family beach. I'm not running for council. And so don't laugh at me, sir.
No, I'm not. I'm agreeing with you.
It's time for the war. The war is got to stop. It's got to end. My family lives here. I have children here. We want peace, transparency, communication goes a long way. Enough. Put things behind you. Move forward. Become a community, a strong community. Come to Family Beach that we used to be. You came here for a reason. And what was it for? The way it was. I'm asking you nicely, all come together. You guys are new, welcome aboard. You haven't seen nothing yet. I don't mean to sound harsh, but God, my God, if anything happens to my 16-year-old, I'll be very upset. All right, there's a lot happening. I have more cameras in my house than you guys got in this town. And what I see walk by, excuse me, don't laugh at me. I'm talking. What I see walks by in this town, there's a lot going on. We live in a different world. I'm not trying to condemn you, but there's a lot going on and people are stealing from us. So please, let's all get together, work together. Put some cameras up here, watch out for each other. We're one community, and let's stay one community. That's the way we should be. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Okay, if that's it for the public comments, and we'll move on to the town council comments. And we'll start out with Mr. Holder.
Never know in the order here. I'm glad to see all of you came out tonight. It was great to hear you sign. It was great to hear about everything about the pier, and I appreciate your openness. And it's difficult in this situation. But hopefully everything be moving forward and get all this done as soon as possible. I look forward to hearing the end date. We had a great event here a week ago for the weekend event in nearby Benjamin Bakery and stuff. It was great. And I'm looking forward to next weekend having an even more outstanding event. And I'll call you to participate. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kinkin.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to see this many faces here, and I hope there are a lot of people listening in. At our last meeting, we were told that there was an inspection had been done. We weren't told about 42 pages. It just is an inspection. And when we found out that it was 42 pages, we all requested a copy. And I looked at mine, and it's a combination of several different inspectors looking at the same thing. And so you start reducing the number of actual items. It came down because two people are seeing the same thing and writing about it. Was I terribly concerned? No, because this is a big project. Most of the items were minor. I know it sounds terrible. It surprised me. I didn't like that. When we should have been given it ahead of time, we weren't. But once I got it and looked at it, it was not 42 pages of major things. A lot of them were little and a lot of them were duplicated. So I kind of relaxed on that issue. But something did hit me in Facebook that I thought was a scare tactic. And they were comparing our debt, our $4 million bond against North Myrtle Beach and Myrtle Beach. I think Myrtle Beach may have $200 million in debt bond. Well, a bank's not going to loan anybody money unless you can show a way to pay it back. When we took this bond out, we were going to use hospitality, A-tax, and actual income from the pier. It's $330,000 a year. And we can either pay it off in 28 or we can continue out to 35. The point I want to make is there isn't a single property tax dollar that's been spent on this pier. This has all come either from the federal government, our $4 million bond, and hospitality. It's not come from property tax. And that's what you're all concerned about. And I keep hearing that misinformation all the time. We are not paying on the pier with property tax money. Yes, we do pay hospitality when we go out to eat, but a lot of it's our tourists. And we can use that money to pay on the pier because it is a hospitality vacation item. We can't pay salaries with it, but we can do a lot of things on the pier. And that's how it was set up, to be paid off either in 28 or 35 using income from the pier and hospitality. And so I hope people hear me, that we're not using tax dollars. And when I say tax dollars, I'm talking about property tax. We're in our campaign for a mayor and 3 council people. I hope when they come, you let them in, talk to them, ask them questions, let them know what's important on your mind. I make a joke about when I go and maybe take me 10 minutes to make my spiel when I was running, and I'd listen to 50 minutes of what they wanted to talk about. That's fine. We need to hear what you have to say. Not everybody's a neighbor. I mean, I met a lot of people on the south end that I didn't know, but I enjoyed listening to what they had to say because their problems are slightly different than in my neighborhood. So be kind to them, take them, offer them water, but have a conversation. You may be the only conversation you have with somebody, but take the time to do it. It's important for this town, for all of us to hear it. And finally, I want to thank our first responders, our town employees. We live in a very clean, very safe town. We all know it, and that's why we're here. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
Mr. Stamey.
Let me start out by saying thanks for everybody coming. I appreciate it. And I'm going to make comments back to some of the people that got up here to the podium and spoke. There are cameras going on the field. That is the definite. That's been looked into. They might not be the 56, I think, what was recommended, but they will be cameras out there sufficient enough to keep up with what's going on in the field. That answers your question. For another question that was asked, are we charging for these delays on the pier? I have asked this question and asked this question and asked this question. I have no answer for you, sir, because I don't know, and I can't get an answer from nobody that'll tell me. I think we should, whether we do or whether we don't. That's my opinion. And for the other questions that was asked, I brought up this subject of last 2 weeks ago when we were told that there was a list being worked on at the pier. And I asked our administrator at that time, how much more was listed? At that time, I did not know there was 42 pages. He said at that time, he turned around to me and said, there are other things that we are working on. So I personally know that there was other things that was happening out there that I didn't like, and I tried to keep up with it. And there's some things that it's okay to talk about and tell people. When I found out there was 42 pages, I was concerned. I didn't realize it. And they might be small things, insulation missing, lights not working. But we hired a company that is supposed to be experienced in doing these things. We paid them people a lot of money to do these things. And it's a good thing that we pay another company to keep up with that company, because there's some things that don't get done. I've been out on that pier several times. We had a long discussion, as I've told you, one day out there about some things that was going on that I didn't appreciate. And that's the honest truth. That's where it's at. As far as what we charge them people, the deadline date was May the 2nd. So in my thinking, they should be paying the $500 a day if not. That's me, unless they can come up with a good excuse not to get paid. And saying that, I'd like to wish everybody that's running good luck. I know the feeling. I've done it 2 years ago. It's a long, hard road to get out there and knock on everybody's door, but please do it. Please listen to what these people's got to say, because there are some good people in this town. They're not all on social media, as I've found that a lot of people that's running is doing. The best way that I can see is you get out there and meet the people and listen to what they've got to say, because they've got a lot to say. With saying that, God bless you and good night.
Ms. Keating.
I want to thank everybody for coming out and all the candidates for coming up and speaking. I always appreciate the differing perspectives. As far as, the peer project goes, it's been an ongoing battle. It's not unique to today or the team we have today. We've had 4 different engineers assigned to the project. We've had 3 or 4 different building inspectors assigned to the project. We've had 3 different councils build up of people assigned to the project, and very few of all of them understand where we've come from and how we got to where we are and what challenges we've already overcome to get where we are. We should be very proud of the project, and it's very disheartening to be surprised by a document that is, out in the public domain, making the town look bad, when in actuality, when you look at the content, and had we received, or had someone received the independent walkthrough reports and consolidate them and evaluate them, none of this would have even raised an eyebrow. Because most of the items here, the big items, were already things known that the team's been working on. 90% of the rest of the items have either been resolved in the last week, so clearly they're not significant, or they're items that just aren't in the scope of this project. There's at least 3 or 4 items on this list that people are making observations about the parking lot. Parking lot's a separate contract, has nothing to do with the pier completion. So it was blown out of proportion, it was communicated poorly, and, the team is working together to solve the problems. I just wish they would sit down and talk before passing more documents out into the public domain, because whether you like it or not, we are a municipality, and anything you put in writing is available for the public to know about. So before you write another letter, before you write another email, before you write another text message, before you write another Facebook post, understand that it all can go into the public domain somehow. So with that, I want to encourage all of the new candidates to understand what it means to be on council, what is the role of council. And I have said it to a few people before, that council members and candidates that are fueled by bias and or vengeance are not doing any favors for the town. I think an alarm went off. You're doing no favors to the town. 4 years ago, 3, 4 of us came on council, and we pledged transparency. We pledged that we were going to review the ordinances to try to make them more appropriate to everyone. And that is what we've done. You do have more information available to you now than you ever did before. We came from a place where you didn't get synopsis of the meetings. You had to wait till the meeting minutes came out. You had 1 meeting a month. You didn't have 5 minutes to talk at a council meeting twice during a council meeting. You had 3 minutes, period. So you were silenced, right within the letter of the law. So, I get a lot of people that, are fueled by that bias or by that vengeance, or don't seem to like certain aspects. You're never going to please everybody. I don't know in any situation where that's ever been possible. But you've got to realize you have to do the best for the majority of the people. You have to be able to come up with a solution to a problem that benefits the most. It's not going to benefit everybody. It can't. Just like the whole drama we've all heard about Chapter 12 and the right-of-ways. We made over 300 current violations of our ordinance compliant with the revised ordinance. That's over 300 people that would be happy. Now, there might still be 50 that are unhappy, But we made over 300 people happy with changing our ordinance to be something we can enforce. So that is the focus of council. Council is a policymaker. They are the ones that create the ordinances and ensure enforceability and accountability of our staff. We are not here to project manage. We are not here to direct staff on how to do their job, when to do their job. We are here to set policy, to set laws, to establish a budget, and to hold our staff accountable. So with that, I want to thank you again for coming out. I appreciate all the comments and the private messages on Facebook, giving me an opportunity to answer your questions personally without some of the other distractions of Facebook fodder that we hear and we see constantly. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Mr. Drake.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and tuning in also. On the fiasco of the 42-page, I got it from Mr. Vincent on the 19th. I was shocked as I was sitting there reading it. And I started seeing comparisons and paint dribbles and stuff on the windows. I said, that's nothing. And I kept trying to find this smoking bomb. And the stuff I kept reading really wasn't that bad. It's concrete cracks. Why? Let's get the builder, let's find out what it is and get it done. But when it gets in social media, for some reason in this town, it's actually sickening. Because people have fake profiles, they go under different aspects, they got different pages, and they all got a little spin. And it gets worse during election time. And it's really bad. I mean, they call people names, they degrade people, then when you answer them, you give them an answer to what it is, the way our body of council set up, one vote, one person. So no one person has any control. It takes 4 or 5, it's a majority thing. But they don't want to hear that. They want to constantly, oh, y'all's fault, y'all's fault. Well, I don't mind being blamed, but I'll explain to you the best I can to what's going on. I have a phone that works. I've got an email that works. If anybody wants to call me or talk to me, give me a call. I'll stop by your house. But in the process of campaigning, I plan to go around and talk to people. But I hope people will, and the residents of Surfside Beach will be listening to their own self, listening to the facts, and not being like a herd of sheep and take to slaughter, because that's what it feels like. I mean, one person gets on screams and hollers, and everybody just, oh, that's the truth. It's not the truth all the time. So what you hear and see is not necessarily all true. So that's my soapbox for tonight, so I'll let it be, but thank y'all for coming out. Have a good night.
Mr. Cracklock.
Well, first I'd like to say, in my opinion, the biggest problem with our pier goes way back to the beginning when, I don't even remember which council it was, but they declined having a project manager on what started out at a $12.5 million project, I believe. Who does that? I mean, you need to have some oversight so that you have timelines that are adhered to. And you, when it comes to material selection, what was written in the bid, if you can't decide, you go with what's in the bid and you give them a timeline when it's going to be delivered and done. I think everything just took way too long, longer than it should have. But it is what it is, and eventually it'll get done. The cameras have already been answered. We do have cameras that will be added to the pier. They just haven't been put up yet. The public Facebook page, I really do believe that if we're going to try to limit it, I think we're headed down the wrong path. I think we just use it as putting information out there and be done with it. No replies to it. There's plenty of other forums on Facebook that have Surfside Beach in their title. Go there if you want to have a discussion. I don't think the town pages are probably the place to have it, but as Ms. Keating says, the fire and police, they have their pages. Maybe they think differently about it, and we need to take that into account too and work it out. You can have an open forum with verified users too. Before I got on council, I had a web page. You could actually join my forums, but I would verify who you were, so you weren't hiding behind aliases and you didn't have 3 people under the same name. And that's fairly simple to do. I don't think it's simple to do on Facebook though. But if you put a forum on your web page, which is possible on our web page also. I'd like to thank all the candidates that are running. You might want to wish that you don't win.
Why aren't they announced?
Why don't they introduce?
Oh, well, I can't remember all their names, is why I don't, but here.
They were introduced last week. They were introduced 2 weeks ago.
If I may interject, there is a candidate forum sponsored by the business committee scheduled for Thursday, October 26th.
But I'd like to thank them all for running and taking the effort to help represent the people in this town. We need some younger people, in my opinion. And we have some that are younger, almost everybody's younger than I am. I may not look old, but I'm probably the second oldest one up here, I don't know. Anyway, thank you to all the employees also that keep the town running even when we give them a hard time, it seems like. With that being said, good night.
Tonight's been a lively discussion. We've talked about a lot of things. You know, it appears something that just hasn't gone away, and it's not going to go away until we get it finished. So we're working on that to get that done. The part about the social media policy, I agree with what a lot of the public comments were, that, you know, we shouldn't be censoring our public things. I mean, I think it's better that the town website puts out information and it's one way. We tell you the way that it is, and if you want to have a social discussion on it, then go to your other websites to do that. But I don't think the town website's the place to go to get that done. I appreciate everybody that's coming out, and I know that when I was running for office, that I was just about talking in every single council meeting prior to that. So I'm sure that everybody's going to be here and that everybody has an opinion, and we'll see how things go. But I think we're moving in an okay direction. We'll see how things go. And with that, you know, everybody have a good evening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not talking.